Welcome to AI for the Normal Guy. I'm Phil. I'm here joined with Lauren Winsler and Shane Spencer. Lauren, what's your background again?
That's a great question. I'm currently doing software development, but finding that changing by AI on a daily basis.
And then
Nice.
Shane's, you've been red hot. I think there was something that we couldn't talk about last week that we could talk about this week, but I'll let you kind of,
Yeah.
Shane,
No,
tell
I'm
us
a
what's new.
all right. Well, for I'm a work in the appliance repair trade as an operations and growth manager for a small to medium sized appliance repair business in the North Bay. So that's my main shtick. I dove into AI automation work and just creating tools for them and kind of dove into that space and have been vibe coding since the end of 24 or so. And I officially started on Monday as an official vibe coder in residence with Lovable.dev. So I get to work with this, multi-billion dollar company right in their infrastructure, building lovable tools for Lovable with Lovable's product. So it's very cool. Like a massive
Right.
opportunity to be one of the first five AI or five vibe coders to get hired on by a large company like this and probably the world. I don't know. It's bonkers.
That's bananas. So it's
That's cool.
essentially going from like hobbyist enthusiast to being in the kind of in the middle of everything now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a lot. We're working with their people and ops team and then some of their financial team personally. And the other guys have different departments, but it's community builders, because I'm a community champion. So I already kind of have like a pseudo ambassador role where I get perks for it and help the community out. And part of it kind of leads to I'm already connected with the community. I'm in the Discord all the time, and I know what the users want and what they struggle with, and I can now take those straight to the leadership, the developers. I can talk to the guy who's working on the front end. I can talk to the guy who's working on the model training, the gal who's helping run whatever department. It's crazy, exciting times.
Insane. So what's the official title with Lovable? Vibe coder?
Vibe coder in residence. So it's like a fully remote position for me.
Nice.
I think
It's like
it'll
a
come
Britney
with a trip
Spears
out
thing,
to
but
Stockton,
It's kind
maybe,
of a it's kind of a
or Stockton.
clever title. The VC firms used to have, and they still have, entrepreneurs in residence, right? They used to hire people they thought were go getters that would
Hmm.
like work on ideas internally, right? In other words, they weren't going to go out and invest, but they were going to maybe potentially start a company, and if the venture capital firm wanted to back it, they would get first crack at it. So I don't know if that's still a thing. It used to be a thing where you'd have entrepreneurs in residence. That in residence, right? It almost, I've heard that in residence in that context too. And then of course it makes you think of like doctors after they complete their training, they do a residency, right? And then they become a real doctor or something like that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly. I get to be a
a
real.
real
I'm gonna be
doctor.
a
How dare
real
you?
dev.
You'll be a real vibe coder when you're done.
I'm gonna be a real boy.
I think it's
From
cool that
Pinocchio to
they created that role,
Yeah,
that title. It's definitely
I
better
ex-
than
I
well, what's
definitely
interesting
expect to
is
start seeing other guys doing that too
yeah.
in the coming.
I think it's kind of a metaphor for the environment right now because everything's changing so fast. And honestly, I don't know where someone would go formally for an education in today's AI tools. I mean, is there an answer to that question other than
Other than
diving in
YouTube.
on your own and learning? I mean, YouTube, can you go to, is there a,
The community,
MIT?
like, sure there are classes and I mean there's school. People who really into using school to find it. I mean, a lot of people come in to the like Discord, the community channels, and they learn there. But then you get shared resources from other people who have been doing it. So they'll be like, check out this YouTuber, check out this school, check out this product, go to this, join this channel. Um, but really, like I personally never really watched any I watch AI news YouTube stuff, but I don't watch any like how-to guides on there. I mean, most of them are like it's redundant. I mean, I might learn a tip, like a little nugget of knowledge that'd be like, I didn't think about doing that. But most of the time, it's like that really helped me. And I think part of the future is learning at your own pace, and AI helps you learn at your own pace. So if you really want the answer to that, is ask AI.
right? I mean, I was gonna say that's what I tend to be doing, but if you're a formal university, by the time you've created a syllabus and, got it on on the agenda for a class that's gonna be enrolled in a semester, TBD in the future, everything's changed.
Yeah, I've noticed that there are a lot of schools or actual schools and community colleges and online education programs that are already lagging maybe 2.5 years behind, right? They'll teach you how to do AI agents using LangChain and other libraries that are kind of like the first things that came out in 2023, 2024. And they're definitely not at the cutting edge. So I think people want to turn to things like that, but at the same time, it may be better just to roll up your sleeves and get and be self-taught. So I don't know if that helps you
And
get a
when
job.
well, and the thing that's so the other thing that's interesting too is I don't even know how, obviously in a Discord community over time and as a community leader, you can kind of show your skill and your expertise, but like if somebody was hiring for somebody for AI, I wouldn't even know the first thing on how they would test somebody. Would you test them or can you go by a resume or
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know. Like your portfolio.
you
I
know?
tell everybody to make their own page, make their own space, their own portfolio, and show the projects and just blog about what they're building or whatever, or have AI blog about what they're doing. Things build in public. I think the really, I
That's
bet going.
actually
Mm,
if I could so back up a little bit cuz that's actually really um a great idea. In other words, so how to demonstrate your ability using AI tools. So what were you suggesting to people?
well, first build your own site, your own place, your own portal, your personal landing page or product page that will show the things that you're building and that you have built, whether they're customer facing things you've actually made for client work or they're just to show what you built. Like honestly, if you build something and you like the way it turned out, put it on there. I mean, it doesn't have to be a real functioning site for a customer or app for a customer, and then just start, take screenshots. If it's software, do this, link to your GitHub repo, be like, I've got, 60 different GitHub programs that or programs I've uploaded into Git and that I've built myself. Even if you never posted any of them on the internet, they're all local projects. People are gonna be like, I've been using AI for the last, you know, my first 6 months of AI development was all local. It was all Python, AHK, Electron. It was nothing even remotely on the front end. I didn't get into front end development with AI until like mid, early to mid 25, you know, and then I took off with it. And then, yeah, document, blog it, write what you're doing, have AI write what you're doing. And the last thing would be social media, start posting. I mean, honestly, a presence, whether pick your poison, Facebook, Twitter. I
Yeah,
hear
really
Facebook
just
pays
pick a
well, actually.
socially, I think just picking a channel is probably the best way to go instead of trying to be everywhere all the time.
Yep. Engage with that one. Don't try and automate all of it. Automate your content creation, but be engaging personally. These platforms are going hard against bots and automation against posting and engaging with content. So false engagement will risk getting your account banned. So get on an hour a day. Post, schedule a post or post twice a day on the platform you want. I do it 3 times a day on LinkedIn or try to, 2 or 3, and comment. Spend an hour a day commenting on the top creators in your field that you're going for, and that's the biggest thing you can do go and do growth wise. And I picked LinkedIn for mine, but Twitter would work, Instagram, TikTok if you like to make videos and you're on the go. You name it.
Right on. So it's been a busy week, which I think is gonna be the theme every week now. That's why I mentioned maybe at some point we're gonna start having to think about going twice a week
Eventually.
just so things aren't stale. So what Lauren, what are the new tools like that have dropped this week or even today?
Gosh, you're asking the wrong person because I've been working today. I think
See,
Nano
that's what happens.
Banano I think Nano Banano 2 came out, right? Which is the Google image gen. Uh, I think I heard of that. What else this week?
Oh, I got a normal guy
Are you talking
question for
about
you guys.
today or this week?
Or this week, since last we taped.
My favorite was Cloudflare, in a open source rewrite of a software framework called Next.js, which is the most popular React
Oh, yeah.
server framework. And that's a crazy idea that they would drop a post and say, well, it took us a week and one engineer to rewrite this major software framework and make it a lot faster and make it run on our platform. And that set fire to some people this week. But yeah, there's so many model releases.
Well, I got a question for you guys, a normie question, and that is, so I think Google released another update to Gemini. It was like a
Mhm.
3.1 Pro,
Th- Yep.
but the claim is that it's doubled its reasoning, and I have no like, does that mean faster or does that mean less hallucinations? What does it mean when a model advances, or does it have something to do with that test that they measure the models against? Which what is it called? The last human test?
A sweet test or sweet bench test or what? I know that one,
But
but I
so when
don't
a new
know
model
really.
comes out, so Shane, like when Google says that they've released Gemini 3.1 and then it's got double the reasoning capability, what does that mean?
I mean, I didn't notice a massive difference, but I don't know what they exactly mean for it. And it's all bench testing is one thing. So like we are all skeptical in the builder space. It's like, oh, so you bench test, 60% higher than the last model. What's that really mean in real life time and with your, when you're not sitting in an environment that you built specifically to give it every advantage to do the best that it can versus, actual real world use. I'm really not 100% sure on what exactly what they mean when the reasoning comes up. It parses its logic longer. Maybe they display the reasoning better. I mean, it was already a reasoning model. I don't know. I haven't been able to compare their thought process, and I
Yeah,
honestly, so
I wonder if they're just increasing the amount of like internal teeth grinding that the model does. Because when reasoning
Recursive.
models first came out, basically instead of immediately answering the question, like what color is the sky, and it answers blue or something, a reasoning model would sort of like ask questions through a chain of thought and other kind of thought questions that the answer would be more complete, I guess, right? So if I say the sky is blue, the reasoning model might do what a human would ask if I asked you that question, like, why are you asking, right? Are you looking out the window? Are you looking not able to look out the window, right? I mean, like, what's the purpose of the question, right? In other words, take sort of human questions to task and figure out how to answer it, and you might throw other questions in there. So maybe they're just doing more internal questioning and answering before coming up with whatever answer it's going to spit back. The
I mean,
amount of
like the
time,
behind the scenes
yeah, when the
recursive, have you
you know
double checked this answer?
exactly, yeah, it's that whole. There's so many mechanisms that the models employ right now. One of the older ones was that chain of thought where it would sort of you ask a question and instead of immediately deriving an answer, it would go through a process of asking itself another question, then another question, then another question, and try to circle back to create the best answer to the original question. So I don't know if you've ever, you know, ask ChatGPT or one of the models a question and it just gives you a page long answer, which in there, where's the answer, right? It's
No,
it's gone way beyond what you asked. And nowadays, if you want it to be very quick, you got to say be brief or be succinct. You got to tell
well,
it
I
to
remember Claude. I was doing some vibe coding early on with Claude, and I forget what model change it was, but it went from like asking what time it is to telling me how a watch is made. the
Right?
old
I mean,
metaphor.
that's so it'll go deeper on why the watch is made as opposed
Yeah,
to
it's like, I just wanna know what time it is. Just do this.
yeah, it's crazy, but I think, those internal, iterations to some extent, the as you called it, the recursive nature of like, asking itself other questions before it answers. So the amount of time that it's thinking about,
I don't
what are
think
you
they do that with
really
Grok at
asking
all.
here? So, but I found that a lot of times if I don't want a lengthy answer, I have to tell it to be succinct but you can also tell it to think hard or think extra hard or,
Ultra think.
yeah, ultra think was the
Ultra
Claude
think.
thing where it'll bill
Hashtag
you.
I'm gonna hashtag that one. Ultra
Ult-
think. Is that
yeah,
is
that's
that
how
a
you
thing?
increase your token spend is you tell it to ultra think and it turns on the highest level of token spend.
No,
So,
Not
no,
not
no,
everybody has unlimited tokens, Shane.
no
uh,
mistakes. Ultra think.
yeah, don't
Steve
tell
jo-
me the wrong.
Steve Jobs mode. That's a good one.
Which
Steve
also heats
Jobs.
up the room.
Engaged. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know how often you guys actually watch the thoughts, like, and expand the thoughts and try and catch what it's doing while it's thinking. It's so interesting. It's like, I'm amazingly interesting to watch it reason. And you're like, oh my God, sometimes the reasoning that goes in there is very human. And you're like, well, I should do this and do that. Oh, but if I do that, thinking you're like, oh my God, it's running over. Pretty soon we're going to have personality disorders and like with our agents in general, they're going to be struggling. It'll be like, and they do hallucinate, so I don't know. But I
Alright, well,
often find myself catching the thoughts and interrupting it and like going, whoa, 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 simmer down. Let's go this direction. Quit
now
overthinking it.
that's a good question. So if I'm using whatever tool, uh, another normal guy question. So if I'm using whatever tool and it's obviously like it's really grinding on something that is way past what I've already needed or something, or I want to kind of interrupt it and stick it back in the right get it going in the right direction without like wiping out everything it's already worked on. I've noticed is that a thing in tools other than like coding tools?
Yeah, you can do that in GPT. You can do that in Claude's Basic, Grok, probably.
Because
Most of
because I
them,
think
if
now
you
when you hit
stop it,
stop, it remembers what it was working on, right? Whereas
yeah, it didn't used
maybe
to.
maybe 3 months ago, 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago, if you hit stop, it would go back pre-prompt.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's you still get the pre-prompt sometimes if it goes like if like it interrupts something like you on accident, doesn't officially stop it because there's a obviously when you actually click stop on most models, it'll just like clip and like it doesn't stop instantly. It has to think a little. It finishes its thought, then it stops. So that's most use cases or most cases,
Lauren, have
which
you
you
run
should
into
do
that?
that too.
Into what?
Into, like, being halfway like a prompt kind of going off in the wrong
Yeah,
direction, and I guess it's an old problem because now it does tend to remember what I was working on and not start over.
I think I don't know how this is handled in like the chat bots and chat GPT, but in a lot of the tools, the ability to kind of roll back to a prior state is kind of a main thing, right? Go back to the prior checkpoint and sort of delete the answer that you just made because
Ooh,
that went in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
That's
revert,
super
revert.
revert,
that
yeah,
seems like a
super
newer thing
useful.
too, also because
Mm,
before it wouldn't necessarily checkpoint, it would think about how to go back, and then you necessarily wouldn't get that snapshot from 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
Cursor's had that for well over a year, the reversion, and like you can always go back on your GitHub too, right? You can revert to previous instances. A reversion's been a thing forever, right? Or for a long time, I'm sure you would know.
I think a normal guy way to think about chatbots and AI right now and the memory is not so much like, well, how do I get it to revert and so forth, but how do I make sure I don't chat about something that I don't want to come up later, right? In other words, if I start asking it about certain things, those things
Bank
will be
robbing.
made, they will be part of the memory, right? So if you ask certain health questions or you ask how to commit
Sure.
tax fraud or something like that, those things can be saved in the memory, right? I know that a simple examples, if I ask it a bunch of technical questions, it'll answer another technical question in the context of what it thinks I'm doing from like days and weeks
Oh,
ago and so forth, right?
Yep, for
So
sure.
it's saving information about your environment. So if you start saying, asking about a certain health question, and then you come back 3 weeks later and ask about a different health question, it might try to combine the context of that, right? So if you ask a health question for a friend, right, and then you tell the friend something, or you're just researching a family member's condition, and then you come back and ask about a health question you had, you know, ChatGPT is building a health profile that's got
well,
multiple health issues that cross over. So I think there's this notion of like, what account am I logged into and what memory is the agent keeping on you, right? So if you're working on a
Mhm.
software program, you got to keep a separation of church and state. You got to keep keep them separate, or it's going to get confused as to what the heck it's working on. I think the same thing is true, like in just normal like vacation planning. You could be like, "Give me an idea of where should I go in Mexico?" And then you ask it about where to go in San Diego. It might assume you're going on the same trip to San
right.
Diego, then Mexico, but in reality, it's 2 separate trips. You never know. I mean, I'm just giving
That's a
examples
good
that.
example of that the models are kind of persistent now, and they tend to put things in the context to prior
Yeah.
inquiries.
So I have
You
a
can erase memories on most of the models. You can go in and edit your
It
memories in
needs to be a big
GPT,
red button.
Right. But a lot of
just in the
people
settings.
will do it's the equivalent of like incognito mode, like go to a Chat GPT account and don't log in, rather just go to Chat GPT and ask a question without actually logging in so that it doesn't
Yeah,
save it under your username.
good
I
point.
don't know that people necessarily know that, like that's a broader context type thing. I think it'll become more common,
Oh, yeah.
but
In Claude, they have built in the top right corner, if you open Claude, it's got a little ghost, like a Pac-Man ghost, and you can click that and go into incognito mode.
interesting. I
Yeah,
haven't
but
seen
like
that yet.
we know in the past, like Facebook has put tools in place that, this is for your safety. And it turns out it's just for them to gather more data. I want to move on to a formal topic here. I actually prepared for a little bit, and it's the Burger King story. This is new as of today. And that is Burger King is piloting an AI assistant named Patty that plugs into the BK assistant system, assistants being the workers in the restaurant. And it lives in the workers' drive-through headsets, and it can answer questions that the employees may have, like how many strips of bacon go on a burger or how to clean a machine. And it's kind of pitched internally in Burger King as like a real-time coach for staff and like almost a support. But another thing that it does, which is a little darker, I guess, is that it's also listening, and it's kind of assessing employees for their friendliness. So far, assessing employees for their friendliness and how they interact with customers. But, it's Shane, I would imagine this is interesting, kind of considering your old day job of managing service techs. But, um, I mean, at the end of the day, all these LLMs and their strength seems to be dealing with you know, transcripts or video and assessing kind of what's going on and analyzing that data. But what are your thoughts on something like that?
I mean, it's smart. Obviously, everyone should be using it if you're recording. Your data is so valuable now in general. It always has been, but you just didn't know how to use it. Nobody did. Now you don't have to be like a multi-million dollar company to with a team of data analysts to be able to handle your data. Now you just need one guy with a Claude subscription, and you can go, "Oh, guess what? I record my calls, my AI transcripts, and we do that. We all our technicians. Oh, I have years of data from all of my technicians repairs. I can run an analytics on how many refrigerators my technician B struggled to fix in June last year that were this brand and what was the success rate now. And I can find that out in like a couple minutes or quicker. You have full control of all knowledge that you of your data. Like you can if you know how to use it. And like that's going to be even more accessible to everyone. So the big companies that already were using analytics, surely in some form, now are just going to have even more power to it. And the ones that lag behind will just fall a little behind. They'll put it up. Um, I know, like I'm seeing a lot of big companies are starting to hire for AI specialists, and I think a lot of vibe coders are going to get these positions in the coming year or two, especially. I'd be surprised. I mean, like I said, back in January, I was offered a couple hundred grand as a position from that I could have taken on the side, just like or to join a company, but I wasn't going to go work 60-hour weeks for a startup. It's all different. Like, and I don't have development experience, so like I think the big companies will start hiring. So I don't know. That's exciting. I
I
don't know
mean,
what
it's
about
it's
Patty.
wild. It's rewriting everything. But, like, I can tell you as an employee, it doesn't sound super I guess you're kind of at the mercy of the ethics of management at that point. I mean, what do you see some of the downsides of that being, Lauren?
I mean, I think if you're managing employees, the idea of monitoring them is a long-standing situation, right? I mean, I think, this became popular in COVID, the whole click tracking and so forth, and
Yeah.
you would install software for people that were telecommuting and working from home for the first time, remote work. If their mouse went silent and their computer was dead, then it would start to set alarm bells off that, hey, they're not actually sitting at the computer. That spawned a whole series of devices you could buy on Amazon and on Alibaba that would sort of mimic mouse movement. You just plug into your computer and leave. But I mean, even before COVID, people that outsourced overseas and so forth would commonly use software that would sample screenshots, right? So if your remote worker is supposed to be answering customer service replies, and it turns out they're on social media or YouTube or they're watching Netflix, right? You would get
Right,
these
right.
screenshots of like movies and stuff.
Oh
Of course,
yeah.
you tell them, hey, you're going to be monitored, and there's so I think that kind of thing exists. The idea that if you're talking to a customer on like a telephone or on uh, a drive-through intercom system, I think it's assumed that those conversations are going to be recorded and audited and so forth.
It's gonna be in the fine print, right?
There's a really well-known company that does that for inside sales, and I'm forgetting the name of it now. It'll come to me in a second. But their main thing was all about, we're going to just record all of your salespeople's conversations and allow you to listen to them later and coach them and make them better. And of course, they do more automated transcription and analysis of their sales calls and stuff like that. So, what's the name of that company? It'll come to me in a second.
But that's so, like, the gold standard is just data-wise now, is just
Yeah,
transcripts, right?
yeah,
Not only that, but we've all become basically all training AIs at the same time.
yeah,
I mean, one thing that I thought was interesting about the Burger King story was I was expecting the drive-through to be the AI. I think it's interesting in its own way that it's actually rolled out as a tool for its workers, its associates or assistants, which was not what I was expecting.
yeah.
I was expecting
Yeah. It's weird.
Look up Gong. That's the name of the company that records the
Hmm.
phone calls and so forth. They do a lot more now, obviously, but that used to be one of the main things. Gong. But if you're running an inside sales team and so forth, and everyone's on the phone all the time, record their calls. That's not a
I've
new
kind
idea.
of Yeah, I just assume anything and everything I do and say now is being recorded or monitored in some way. I just assume that's it.
Yeah,
I know
certainly
my
in a
phone
public
listens.
space, right?
yeah. To
I mean,
do like sentiment analysis, right? That's not even a new thing, but to be able to take the inflections in the voice or just the transcript itself and determine
oh
if
yeah.
someone's happy or angry or whatever, right? So if you're not cheery enough on the intercom at Burger King, hey, how can I take your order? That kind of thing. If you're
The
not
to
trying to
finish this
upsell
off,
them,
yeah, to finish this, so I read the actual article that was written, or one of the articles written about the story, and they said, and then the writer of the article had said that they don't see the AI being able to, can't detect sarcasm to measure friendliness. And the first thing I thought is like, boy, you lack imagination on just exactly how good these tools are, because it can detect sarcasm. We're already there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think I could.
Our model that runs our phones for my day job, it does full sentiment analysis. I mean, scaled from happy to sad, ranks on every metric you could possibly think of for our customer service reps performance, and just how the customers are when they're irate, when they're there, everything you could possibly think of.
That's
It's
pretty
there.
wild too. Did you guys ever use like the old Net Promoter System? I say
Not that I
old,
know of.
it's like it's kind of like the gold standard, but that was last year, where it's actually customer surveys. I could see customer surveying kind of becoming redundant at this point, right?
I
Yeah.
think it's so hard to get people to fill out those surveys nowadays. I mean, they're getting bombarded, on a scale of 1 to 10, blah, blah, blah. How likely are you to recommend this service to a friend? It's like close, right? I mean, so many people,
Close.
you could spend an hour a day filling out NPS surveys.
They used to try and pay you for that. There'd be little companies that were like, "I'll give you $5. We'll give you some Amazon, free Burger King." I actually made a little. I needed to get some info from my technicians, and I wanted for our biography or our bios on our website. And I was like, nobody's sending me anything. Nobody wants to fill out any forms I send them. So I told my fiance Alicia, I said, I need an app that I can just send them a link and they can talk to an AI and it'll take the survey and then send it to me. And she coded it up in a few hours to OpenAI's Whisper. She connected 11 labs into it to have better voice. And now I just send them a link. They answer. It's like, hey, so and so. These are the questions. It goes through questions. Thanks for calling. Boom. Or thanks for doing this. Now I got all their little bios trickling in bit by bit. Still hard to get them to do that, but I've got more than I did before. It's
Okay, well,
crazy.
I want to now. I'm going to pivot to Anthropic because I did a little prep on this too.
Mhm.
So
Look out.
look out. So Anthropic is rapidly expanding its Claude Cowork and agent tools into office jobs like HR, investment banking, design, and wealth management via deep integrations with sector specific plugins. And I think that this is one of the things that's kind of been different in the last month are these sector specific plugins. And these tools can sit inside suites like Google Workspace or financial platforms, and they can read files, model scenarios, and then draft legal and HR documents and automate big chunks of knowledge worker tasks. So at the same time, they're also introducing new models like Claude Opus 4.6 that are being marketed as better coders and long running task planners meant to act less like a chatbot and more like an always on coworker. And so as a result of this, we've seen massive changes in, uh, in how a lot of software companies that are publicly traded, how their valuation has radically shifted, but who wants to go first on like what it looks like to have um, a tool that's specifically written to like perform a specific task and have it sit inside or right alongside everybody's normal like tools that they normally use. Lauren, what do you got?
I don't want to talk about that, but I will talk about the stock market aspect because I think that's more interesting to most people
Well, yeah.
because
Well, it's all the same
it's
thing, but yeah.
affecting everyone's stock portfolios or 401ks or potentially their jobs as well. So I think there's kind of this debate as to whether there's kind of a slow AI bubble burst crash occurring on one side of the market where, yeah, there's an AI bubble. A certain number of stocks are bid up highly, NVIDIA, AMD, companies that make chips, Broadcom, for instance. And there's all these private companies that are way overvalued chasing the AI bubble. And some would say that there's just a ton of companies that are producing legacy software that do subscriptions that are potentially going to get impacted if people go out and buy Anthropic and say, we're going to use these skills in Claude Cowork and build some custom workflows and just replace a bunch of SaaS software that we paid for in the past. And
Yeah, the IBM one was interesting
the
too with
assumption
the
is, yeah, tell me about that one. I forget what that was about. Like IBM sold off like 30% in one day because
well,
Anthropic released a text file
I think
or
IBM,
there was
so
a
they had
Substack post or something like that. So
right, and I forget which programming language it was, but it was an older programming language that IBM still was
COBOL.
using in a lot of its products,
COBOL,
I
yeah,
guess.
Shane mentioned it there.
Yeah,
COBOL,
COBOL, yeah.
mainframe, mini computers and mainframes.
And then, Claude decides it's gonna learn COBOL and know COBOL, and now IBM's unable to gatekeep people, working on their mainframes, basically.
If IBM is charging people hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars of consulting contracts just to maintain all this legacy COBOL, but it turns out, you can rewrite it or
Shane
fix
in a
it,
laptop?
a Claude Code subscription for a couple $100 a month could fix bugs and update and maintain it. Maybe you don't need to spend, tens of thousands of dollars with IBM on these service contracts. Now, whether that would happen overnight or not, but people attacked
No,
the
but that's
IBM
real. That's
stock,
actually
right?
what's happening right now with the COBOL, some of those old COBOL systems.
Yeah. Well, some could argue that the company, the IBM can use the models because nobody knows COBOL anymore, but they're still going to be able to charge customers to maintain the software. So the ultimate crux of the whole issue is that like code becomes cheap now, right? It used to be expensive to write code and now it's free. It's cheap. It's practically, you know, it costs very little money to produce code in this new era we find ourselves in 2026. So what do people pay for if they're accustomed to spending a lot of money to write and maintain software? So all these companies that are making money on software subscriptions are getting sold off. And
Hmm.
are they going to be replaced by Anthropic subscriptions and people write internal tools instead of buying instead of going to Salesforce and buying a CRM subscription for, whatever $1
Oh
million
god,
a
Salesforce
year,
is
right?
crazy expensive.
But are people going to continue to use Salesforce? Are they going to write their own CRM? Are they going to use a combination of? I think there's just so much fear and uncertainty and doubt that in the stock market, it's easier just to sell off these companies. So it's a weird thing where you sort of you see instead of the AI bubble bursting to some extent as the AI bubble's inflating, it's bursting another corner of the market. It's a
It's
weird
popping other
thing, right?
bubbles on its
Yeah,
way to bursting.
it's weird to some extent, and somewhat you could almost argue that well maybe there isn't an AI bubble because as the bubble inflates, other parts of the market are falling apart.
Are getting
I don't
absorbed,
think there
right?
is an AI bubble. Maybe. I think a lot of businesses, I think there's a tech bubble. I don't think there's specifically an AI bubble. I'd be surprised. I
Well, I
think
think
it's still got time to grow.
if I had to define what I think some people mean by an AI bubble is that at some point, like things have to slow down just so the practical application catches up. In other words, the investment phase of investing in AI, because right now we're in that development and investing phase and not so much the practical application phase, but it's quickly approaching.
Most big investors I've heard are not even putting money into AI anymore or AI projects anymore. You have to have a high user base already to get any kind of backing.
Well, how good of a tool do you need at this point? Like the tools that we have now are so good, they haven't even really hit the Burger
Mhm.
Kings yet, I mean, I think the Burger King thing's fascinating, at least from a standpoint of you take a obviously a company that's not a tech company. No, they're a hamburger company, and they have a lot of locations. I don't think they use a franchise model. I think that they're all Burger King, but of taking something and instead of like applying it at the highest level of the company and letting it work its way down, they're actually providing a tool to each person in a restaurant to improve from the outside in, which is something new, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting. They offer those tools for their employees also to be better. I'm curious versus just tracking and marketing. Who knows?
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, it's wild because they could sit in, Burger King corporate land with the king there presiding over the board meeting, going, let's come up with a new training program for all the associates and use AI to build it. And instead, they just put the tool directly in all their associates' hands, which is wild.
We'll see. I mean, I definitely want.
Yeah,
I have
no, I
Cowork. I
mean
haven't tried to use
TBD.
it. I use Claude Code all the time, but maybe I should set up a Cowork agent on both all my office computers or whatnot, and give give my staff or give our staff some a chance to utilize it, play with it.
Which is the new AI, job of the week apparently is agent wrangler now is a fast growing
Wait a minute, say that again? Agent
agent
wrangler?
wranglers.
And I
You're gonna start hearing that a lot in the next week.
that's a new thing?
Yeah, or people are describing themselves as agent wranglers.
Interesting. Shane just disappeared to update his resume
I
from entrepreneur in residence to entrepreneur in residence and agent wrangler.
An agent
Yep.
wrangler, which is exactly what Shane's doing. Because how many agents you got? Like, so just for example, Shane, how many agents you got working right now?
Just a couple. I have a lot pending advancement, a bunch of browser agents, really, like
Right, right.
6 or 7 different instances of Claude's browser extension that need another prompt to get going again. Claude Code and one cursor instance. Okay, I have 3. I have a lovable project going also.
Stop thinking. They'll keep popping up.
Well, I do. So there's just on the agent topic, a buddy of mine created a thing called, or at least Ralph loop with it, or set up a full prompt system for with a Ralph loop where you can pre-build out basically the whole entire plan. We use it for Lovable, for example. So you have like this super detailed phase by phase, sub phase by sub phase plan for an entire app or structure. And then you go in there with the initial prompt structure and you prompt the first prompt to get it set up. And while that first prompt is setting up, you cue the Ralph loop, and then you hit the repeat. And you can in Lovable you can toggle something that it'll cue the prompt. You can toggle how many times you want it to run that prompt, and then you just turn it to 50 times, and then it runs that prompt 50 times, and it builds the whole app out. And it works very well. It has full verification checks. I have tested it. It's impressive. I mean, full Google Auth setup, everything you need, connect. It's insane. Like, so that is now. Later, you're just going to be able, when you have to offer the loop, you're like, hey, don't stop until it's done. Verify, blah, blah, blah. But for now, you can do something like that and just go. So you don't have to manage nearly as much as you used to.
Well, I got another interesting Claw story that we'll kind of wrap up on, and that is, and this was a post on X, and it seems a little dubious to me, but I think the concept is plausible and realistic. But the post was from, and why not? We'll say it was from Daniel, which is at Daniel Got Hits, and he says, "I have an open claw sending lowball offers on Zillow all day to make boomers start panicking, laugh out loud." And so what he's doing is he's having or what he's claiming to do is use an agent, an AI agent with OpenClaw to go search Zillow for homes that have been on the market 30 days and to send them lowball offers just to troll them basically. And he claims a 70% uh, return rate on, or a 70% response rate on these things that vary all, from like, uh, no thank you to, go fuck yourself.
I,
But what's interesting is it's an agent. So to me, what I find interesting is it's an agent that just some knucklehead can deploy that can disrupt a lot of people's lives, in a very short time. And then when you start thinking about things like Kalshi and how that goes, the world gets really weird really fast. Because for those that don't know, Kalshi is one of those prediction markets, which already suspects that is 30% of its traffic is bot traffic. So
I have a real random thing that popped in that you might find interesting too. And I just saw some
yes,
stuff about this today. Google's making calls to businesses as bots for customers and like testing. And speaking of sentiment analysis, from what I've been researching, it's doing sentiment analysis on your customer service reps and people who answer the phone, which is going to affect your Google's SEO and like your ranking in general. So how well you handle these Google bot calls. And I just got one of my CSRs to message about it. She's like, "What the? Why is Google calling all the time?" Or, this is the second day in a row, and I heard about it this morning. So um, how you handle those calls. Make sure you give it your best foot forward, because if you're like, hang up on the bot, not a good idea, or if you get, lippy with it, it's going to keep that in mind. So it's crazy.
On next week, prompt injection.
Well, the thing about Google making phone calls, they've been doing that for almost a decade now, where they will
Hmm.
call to verify information on Google Maps. There was a product called Google Duplex that you can look up a demo online that Google did probably 7 or 8 years ago, where they called to make like a hair appointment, and it's basically an AI agent. This is well before any of the AI moments that we've currently had, and they told it to make a haircut appointment, and it was just a AI voice calling a regular business on the peninsula south of San Francisco and making a hair. And this was done with the CEO of Google presenting it and so forth. I think they didn't really know what to do with that technology, and in the process they turned that duplex AI assistant onto Google Maps and said, hey, we have a lot of crappy map data, especially overseas. Can you help us like augment and like verify stuff? So I think a lot of times if you see like suddenly Google Maps suddenly has business like open hours that they didn't have before, like, there's just random data that they've been able to augment and make the product a lot better. It's all done by this thing is just constantly, it's been making outbound calls for a decade now, at least for 7 or 8 years, and what used to be
Well,
called Google Duplex. So
and the trick is the data, right? Because before you could have terabytes of data and not know what to do with it, and
yeah.
now you can throw an agent on it
But
and
if Google's agent calls like 10 businesses in a category, let's say they call 10 appliance repair places, and three of them answer and the other ones don't, right?
Mhm.
Isn't it logical over time that they could use that as a ranking factor? Well, let's rank the ones that answer the phone higher than the
I
ones that
think
didn't
they
answer
are.
it.
I think I'm
well,
almost
especially
certain they are.
Yeah.
like what Shane was saying too, especially when you put it in context with the rest of the other data, which is that's where these new tools can really like accelerate and take all these different sets and come up with a lot more tailored experiences, you know?
Yeah, and what happens when you? So I know a lot of people who have changed their service industry businesses their to 24 hours because they have an AI bot answering, so they think they can switch it to a Google, 24-hour now. So what happens when it's 9 o'clock at night and a Google bot calls and gets your Google bot because you're not actually, or your own bot because you're not actually open,
No, I know.
and so your bots start talking, or is it going to be like, oh, you're not actually open. This is an AI service that is not fully clear yet, but where's the transparency on it? Are people going to get their Google business pages shut down? Now, this is as big as AI for the normal guys you're going to get. Small businesses need to know where to go with this. And I'll have more for it next week because I've already have a couple deep research agents on it from this morning
Please
because I
do.
really want to know. Maybe what I'll do is I'll throw some. I don't have, I've been getting connected or purposely connecting with people on LinkedIn, so maybe I'll throw out some to some Google people, see if I get lucky and could talk to somebody about it.
Well, what was interesting, I was vibe coding a little bit last week, and my Git project and my Git account got suspended just because of a certain number of calls that there was a problem. It was having a problem making I was making a plugin for OBS, and the Git system detected that Anti-Gravity was struggling compiling that into a downloadable package, an installable Mac file, and shut the account down because it basically for irregular bot traffic because Anti-Gravity was struggling with something. And it's just it took 48 hours to get it back.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, that
I don't have
it
much to
is.
say about that.
I don't.
Well,
I
and
mean,
my
I'm
point
not
is you're
surprised.
going to have bots talking to bots now.
Yeah.
Bots detecting bots and
I wouldn't
turning
be
in other
surprised
bots
if
and
they
ratting out other
create,
bots,
yeah, I
bot
think
snitches.
they would create kind of a jailbreak type of verbiage. In other words, you ask a sort of weird question that only the bot
A
would
challenge
know to
question.
answer. Yeah, so I think the online You know, I think that if a bot calls a bot and part of their job is to figure out if it's a human answering, if they can't figure it out by sentiment analysis, they'll have some jailbreak questions or something like
I'm
that.
thinking of the
What
Spider-Man
is the
meme where they're all pointing at each other.
Yeah, what's the weather in Cincinnati or something like that? I
Yeah.
don't know. And suddenly
How
it's
many
like,
cities are in this country? Like
yeah,
Well,
in
no, it's, is it
how,
Uzbekistan or
Cloudflare?
something.
how many
Who's the
how many R's are in strawberry
I think it's Cloudflare that has all the lava lamps in their office. You know what I'm talking about, don't somebody?
you're talking about
Okay, that's
now?
for next week, but basically it's a for a means of authentication, they have something like a I'm just gonna pull a number out off the top of my head, level like 150 lava lamps that are all visually,
It
in
is
one
Cloudflare.
camera shot,
Yep.
and they use that to authenticate,
Wow. I just looked it
whatever.
up. Yeah. Cloudflare's headquarters in SF or
Yeah, the
Silicon Valley.
headquarters in SA, how many lava lamps?
I don't know how many. It's a lot.
But makes it
100 maybe,
it makes it,
60.
impossible to randomly recreate as a
Interesting.
two-factor thing. Yeah. Who would have thought?
Okay. Let's go.
Okay.
I'll get some lava lamps next
Okay,
next
quick
time on.
yeah, next time. So predictions, any predictions for the next week?
I think
I
I'm
don't know.
on
You
the
set me off on a tangent here, and I'm sitting here reading this.
Isn't that crazy? We'll have to talk more about that.
I think OpenCloud does fade off into nothingness, or the hype is already leaving, so I expect to get not a lot with that. So
Well,
many new agent teams have launched in the last week.
bot banning seems super hot right now too.
I
Big I'll just do it real quick. Mine
Yeah.
is a massive play from government agent orchestration somewhere in the government within the next week.
What does that look like? Agent orchestration.
Some company partners up to set up fully autonomous, like multi-agent orchestration in like the I want to say, like, if government maybe is too broad, I want to say defense and like the military within the next. That's my prediction for the week.
I think you'll see more open source projects that the internet relies on become closed source or partially closed source. And this is already happening because of that whole Cloudflare rewriting Next.js and calling it the vibe coded Next.js or Vinex, right? Or Vnext.
Next, yep.
And the thing that's happening, that's already happening, is open source projects are taking their test suites and making them private. So basically, if you're going to rewrite something, the way that you determine if you make a clone, right, that's accurate is you take the original product test suite and test it against the new one, right? So I think this already happened with a product called TL Draw, which is like a canvas drawing product, kind of like an open source Mira, and or they're thinking about doing that, or may have already done it. And I think that'll be a defense mechanism for open source projects to avoid getting cloned, especially if they have a business related to that project. They'll take their test suite and make them private so that it makes it harder to make a quick
So
copy.
you got any particular open source ones you would target on maybe closing their doors? 3JS,
I think a lot of them, yeah, I can't even,
TypeScript?
yeah, I don't know
No
about big
way.
companies like that. I would say like the smaller companies that have databases or frameworks and stuff like that. I mean, the list is too long. I just think that we'll see another half dozen of those do the same
Which
thing in the
means that
next month,
the
next
fact
week
that it's a
probably.
long
So,
list makes it ripe too for
but this is a
capture.
dangerous thing, like that open source, which has been such an important reason that the web has grown the way it has grown, is going to be negatively impacted, both the business model of open source, but also just will people write code and contribute it free to the world? And do people care about that? Is it, are you going to use an open source project or just write your own version of it for your internal use or something like that? Just recreate it as opposed to using that dependency. I think I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next several years to open source as a business model and as a as a thing. I mean, one feature
Well,
just
just hold on. So for for regular folks, the importance of open source is the community development, right? So how will that affect community development? It'll basically kill it, right?
it'll negatively impact it. Yeah.
Like you'll have different forks, and all of a sudden, the dominant fork, the open forks are gonna
Yeah, I mean,
branches will die.
it's the same as if you put music out and people copy and sell your music to some extent. It's a similar kind of issue to some extent. I mean, typically the open source business model is that you have it free and open, and as a company wants to use it, they're going to like say, "Oh, we need some support or help from the authors and so forth, so we're going to contact them and get a support contract, or we'll buy a commercial hosted version of that product." There's just so many things that are knock on effects to that I think will be things to look for in other industries. The open source, the other thing that happened this week is GitHub. I know we're wrapping up here, but this feeds into this too. GitHub, I just remembered
Mister
this.
Mister, I don't want to
Holy
talk twice a
I don't
week.
have any yeah, I don't forgot all about this, but, like, if you manage an open source project, one of the things you've had to deal with is all these bot created pull requests. A pull request is, a bug fix or, like, a feature request they submit code to get accepted to the project, and now GitHub has the ability to limit pull requests to specific individuals or groups and so forth. So you can have an
Really?
open source project that only accepts limited pull requests. Because what was happening was open source projects were just completely turning off pull requests because they were getting saturated with like bot created little bug fixes and stuff like that that were not
Or
actually
only
valuable.
Antifa pull requests?
Yeah, and it was really true, especially true for bigger projects that had what are called bug bounties. They would pay little stipends or
Yeah,
little
yeah.
rewards. So people would set up their agent to try to go after these bug bounties, and they're getting thousands of these submissions that a human has to look at. And they're like, I don't have time to look at all these. They just close them and get rid of them all. But GitHub finally responded to that and created a feature to limit pull requests. So, um, and not a normal guy topic, but something that I think is like a
Well,
harbinger
the
of
larger
other
point
things.
is,
So yeah,
a lot like our real estate friend with an OpenClaw agent out making basically fake offers on houses is, there's always going to be people out there that are going to pee in the pool.
well, that's a great example, right? I mean, the Zillow offers is kind of a proxy for pull requests. It's you're
Right.
getting bot traffic to some extent, so limiting what humans can do now because
We're going to be drowning in bullshit.
yeah, because you're gonna not be able to submit an offer on Zillow soon if every offer is like a junk offer from a bot.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, cold calling and cold email and cold bots are gonna ruin it all. I wanna let you have your prediction, but I'll take one more prediction that's more closer to me. I think that, another 1 or 2, I'll say at least one large scale company is gonna officially make public invitation to bring on non-coder vibe coders to work with them also. They're gonna do something like what Level is doing. I think they started a trend, and that will pick up throughout the year. And I think one of them or 2 might jump on very soon to onboard somebody officially.
So a Microsoft or somebody like that, somebody like
Oh, that'd be crazy.
one of the big
I'm
guys.
thinking a competitor for Lovable first, but maybe if it's one of those guys, that's not part of my prediction. It's beyond my prediction.
Well, somebody's got to have a skunkworks type program somewhere where they're just gonna do it. See what happens. I mean, they've got so much money that they can invest in something like that. My prediction is
Absolutely.
a lot more culture related. I see Grok and XAI settling. Well, not necessarily settling, but they're gonna clamp down on Grok undressing teenagers, and being used to undress teenagers because I think they've gotten as much, positive is the wrong word, but they've saturated the attention on that to kind of pull the eyeballs over, and it's run its course. So they're going to lock it down.
It's a good prediction. That'll happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
I think
wonder
we're
if
good.
XAI will be around in 2 years since they got merged into SpaceX. Let's explore that. prediction in the future.
And let's not even talk about Tesla, robo taxi, which seems like
They
honestly like the you know like the middle child of the Musk projects.
Who knows?
I think
Coming.
XAI is like, I think they've had an engineer churn, and we'll see how that impacts them in the long run.
Well,
The
yeah,
fact
nobody
that
wants to work there anymore, right?
XAI was merged, well, XAI bought Twitter, and then now SpaceX is merging with XAI. I don't think that made the SpaceX people very happy. So, but like the engineers though exiting XAI, I mean, I guess he can just get more money, hire more people to keep the ship going and so forth. But are they really going to put data centers in space? So is that really
By the
the
way,
reason
Altman
that they
said
merged them? So
said that's a fantasy and a joke.
yeah, right. It's just crazy. So anyhow,
I agree. All right.
All right, that
Well,
was a lot.
our first
a lot.
fully
I
remote.
mean, first fully remote, and although you're probably down the hall, yeah. Until next week. By the way, you can find this podcast where you get your podcasts, pretty much everywhere. So thanks
There
again,
you go.
guys.
Awesome.